The sky above Olympus tore itself apart. Kratos stood amid the ruins, salt water surging around shattered marble, as the sea reclaimed the mountain. Far below, the broken body of Poseidon vanished into the churning depths, his death already drowning the world in chaos. The blade of Olympus hummed in Kratos' grip, still hungry, its edge slick with divine ichor that steamed against the cold mountain air. Then the world screamed. Not sound. Something deeper. Reality itself buckling under the weight of a god's death. The pillars of Olympus, grown tilted, began their slow collapse into the void where the sea had been. Gaia's distant roar shook the foundations of existence, her massive form thrashing against chains that were never meant to hold her. Fire climbed the horizon. Smoke choked what remained of the sky. Kratos turned his back on the devastation. One more god dead. The work continued, but the rift opened anyway. It split the air 10 feet in front of him, a jagged wound bleeding light that had no name. Not divine light, not mortal flame. Something between. Something wrong. The edges crackled with energy that made his skin prickle, made the chains of the blades of chaos rattle against his forearms without him moving. Kratos raised the blade of Olympus. If this was another trick from Athena's ghost, another god attempting intervention, he would cut through it like he cut through everything else. The rift expanded, pulled, not with force but with inevitability, like a whirlpool claiming debris. The ground beneath his feet cracked, tilted, and then there was no ground at all. Just the pull, just the falling. Kratos did not scream. He had forgotten how years ago. The rift swallowed him whole. When he opened his eyes, the air tasted different. Wrong. Sterile in a way that had nothing to do with nature and everything to do with machinery. The smell of ozone and metal and something chemical that burned the back of his throat. Kratos pushed himself upright, blades of chaos already in hand before his vision fully cleared. He stood in a corridor. Not stone, not wood. Something smooth and cold that reflected the emergency lights flashing red along the ceiling. The walls were white too, white marked with yellow hazard stripes and symbols he did not recognize. A language he did not know. Machinery hummed behind panels, a sound like distant insects. This was not Olympus. This was not any realm he had seen. Alarm shrieked. The sound stabbed into his skull, high and mechanical and designed to hurt. Kratos gritted his teeth and started walking. There would be an exit. There would be whoever controlled this place. And if they stood in his way, they would fall like everything else. The first door he tried was locked. The second shattered when he kicked it. The metal frame bent, sparked, and died. Inside was a room full of screens, each one showing different angles of the corridor he had just left. Dozens of images of himself caught in flickering red light. Empty chairs sat before the monitors. Someone had been watching. Someone had run. Kratos moved on. He found stairs descended 3 levels before the architecture changed. Less clinical, more industrial. Pipes ran along the ceiling, thick as tree trunks, dripping condensation that pooled on the concrete floor. The emergency lighting was sparser here, casting long shadows that stretched and twisted with each flash. His boots splashed through water that tasted like rust and chemicals. Then voices. Human voices, rapid and sharp with panic. Did you see that? Did you fucking see that? Get Stormfront. Get A-Train. Get anyone. Where did he come from? How did he breach? The voices cut off when Kratos rounded the corner. 3 men in black tactical gear rifles raised visors covering their faces. They froze for half a heartbeat. That was long enough. Kratos moved like he had moved through countless battlefields. The blades of chaos sang as they left his hands, chains uncoiling with the smooth precision of serpents. The first blade caught the nearest guard in the chest, punched through Kevlar like it was parchment. The man's rifle clattered to the floor. His body followed a second later. The other two opened fire. Bullets sparked off the walls off Kratos' gauntlets as he raised his arms. One caught him in the shoulder. The pain was distant, irrelevant. He yanked the chains, pulled himself forward faster than they could adjust their aim, and his fist found the second guard's throat. Bone cracked. The man dropped. The third guard ran. Kratos let him go. There would be more. There were always more. He continued downward. The facility opened into a larger space, something that might have been a loading dock or vehicle bay. Metal grates for flooring open air above, showing a night sky he did not recognize. No stars. Just the orange glow of distant city lights and the silhouettes of mountains against the horizon. Trucks sat idle along the perimeter, dark and abandoned. Emergency lights spun lazy circles across everything, painting it all in rhythmic crimson. Then the wind changed. Electricity in the air, the smell of ozone intensifying. They came from the sky. The first was a woman. She descended like a falling star, landing with enough force to crack the grate beneath her boots. Blue-white lightning crackled across her suit, a sleek black thing that looked more like armor than cloth. Her eyes locked onto Kratos, and her mouth curved into something that might have been a smile if it had contained any warmth. "Well," she said, voice carrying easily across the space. "Look what crawled out of the dark." Two more figures dropped from above. The second was lean, vibrating in place like he could not stand still. His suit was bright blue with silver accents, built for speed rather than impact. He circled Kratos at a distance too fast to track properly, leaving after images in his wake. The third was broader, his suit scaled like fish skin, all greens and blues that shifted in the spinning emergency lights. He moved with the confidence of someone used to being stronger than his opponents, shoulders squared, fists clenched. Kratos did not move. He watched them position themselves. Triangle formation. Professional. They had done this before. The woman stepped forward. Lightning danced between her fingers. "I'm Stormfront. This is A-Train and the Deep. We're here to help you adjust to your new situation." Kratos said nothing. Strong silent type. Fine. Stormfront's smile sharpened. "Here's how this works. You're on Vought property. That means you're either with us or you're a problem. And we handle problems." Still, Kratos did not speak. He simply shifted his weight chains, rattling. A-Train blurred forward impossibly fast, fist aimed at Kratos' jaw. The punch would have shattered concrete, should have shattered bone. But Kratos had fought beings who moved between heartbeats, who rewrote the rules of speed with divine will. A soup enhanced by chemicals was nothing compared to Hermes. Kratos caught the wrist mid-strike, twisted. A-Train's momentum became his enemy. His body whipped around like a rag doll, and Kratos released him into the nearest truck. Metal crumpled. Glass exploded outward. A-Train did not get up immediately. The Deep charged with a roar. Predictable. Kratos sidestepped, drove his elbow into the man's spine as he passed. The Deep went down hard, skidded across the grating, and lay there gasping. Stormfront's smile died. Lightning erupted from her hands, a torrent of electrical fury that turned the air white. It struck Kratos' center mass, should have cooked him inside his own skin. But Kratos had stood in Zeus's lightning, had endured the Olympians' full wrath when the god had still ruled the heavens. This was a pale imitation. He walked through it. Stormfront's eyes widened. She poured more power into the attack, the air itself screaming with the energy discharge. Kratos kept walking. The blades of chaos ignited in his hands their cursed flames, licking up the chains, and he could see her realization hit. She was not fighting a man. She was fighting something else. Kratos threw the blades. They crossed the distance in an eye blink, wrapping around Stormfront's arms, the chains binding tight. She screamed as the cursed fire burned through her suit, through her skin. Kratos yanked her forward, pulled her off her feet, and caught her throat with one hand. He lifted her into the air. She clawed at his wrist, lightning sputtering weakly against his skin. Her mouth worked, trying to form words, threats, pleas. It did not matter. "You call yourselves gods." Kratos' voice was gravel and cold iron. The first words he had spoken since arriving. "You know nothing of gods." He threw her. She hit the far wall with a wet crack and slid down unconscious. The lightning died. Kratos stood alone in the loading bay, breathing steady blood from his shoulder wound, already slowing. A train had crawled out of the truck wreckage and was now sprinting away, a blue streak disappearing into the darkness. The Deep remained on the ground, conscious but unmoving eyes wide with animal fear. Sirens wailed in the distance. More would come. Always more. Kratos looked up at the unfamiliar sky, at the city lights bleeding orange against the dark. This place reeked of false power. Of people who had never known true strength, pretending they controlled the world. It reminded him of Olympus before the fall. Of gods who thought themselves untouchable. He had ended that world. He would walk through this one the same way. Kratos turned toward the facility's interior, toward the sound of running feet, and shouted orders. The blades of chaos dripped fire onto the concrete. Behind him, Stormfront's body twitched once and went still. He moved back into the corridor system, following the main passage deeper into the mountain. The architecture told him things. Reinforced walls, blast doors every 50 feet. This was not just a facility. This was a fortress built to contain something, or someone. The next chamber opened into a vast underground space that stretched beyond the reach of the emergency lighting. Kratos' eyes adjusted. Laboratory equipment lined the walls. Machines with purposes he could not name but recognized as tools of experimentation. Glass tubes stood in rows, each large enough to hold a man. Most were empty, some were not. Bodies floated in amber liquid, suspended and still. Some looked human. Others had been warped by whatever science this world practiced. Extra limbs, twisted spines, skin that pulsed with unnatural color. Failed experiments. Kratos had seen similar in the depths of Olympus, where gods had played at creation and discarded their mistakes. Movement caught his eye. One of the tubes at the far end. Something inside was awake. Kratos approached. The figure pressed against the glass, a man with too many eyes, all of them tracking Kratos with desperate hunger. His mouth moved, forming words that the liquid swallowed. Begging or warning. Kratos could not tell which. He did not stay, to find out. This place was a tomb for the living, and he had no interest in its occupants, only in whoever ruled it. The facility trembled, not from structural damage, from something incoming, fast. Kratos heard it before he saw it, the displacement of air, the sonic crack of something breaking the sound barrier. He turned as the far wall exploded inward. A figure stood in the smoking crater. Red cape settling around broad shoulders. Blue suit pristine despite the violence of his arrival. Blonde hair perfectly styled. And those eyes. Blue and cold and utterly empty of anything resembling humanity. This one was different from the others. The power rolled off him like heat from a forge. Not divine, but not entirely mortal either. Something created, something manufactured to approximate godhood. "You made a mistake," the man said. His voice carried the practiced cadence of someone used to cameras and crowds. "Stormfront was one of ours. The Seven don't take kindly to—" Kratos threw the first blade before the speech finished. The man caught it, smiled, crushed the blade in his fist like paper. The smile died when the chain wrapped around his wrist, when the cursed flames began to burn, when Kratos yanked and the man stumbled forward instead of standing immovable. Surprise flickered across that perfect face. Then rage. He moved fast. He moved faster than Stormfront or A-Train. A blur of motion that would have been invisible to mortal eyes. His fist connected with Kratos' jaw drove him back 3 steps. The taste of copper filled his mouth. The man came in again, a flurry of strikes that hammered into Kratos' guard, each one carrying enough force to shatter stone. But Kratos had fought gods who created storms with their footsteps. This man was strong. He was not divine. Kratos caught the next punch, pulled the man close, and headbutted him. The man's nose broke. Blood sprayed across that perfect suit. He staggered back, hand going to his face, staring at the red on his fingers like he had forgotten what blood looked like. "You're bleeding," Kratos said. Statement of fact, nothing more. The man's eyes snapped up. The cold blue ignited with heat, actual heat. His pupils glowed red, laser vision lanced out. Twin beams of concentrated energy that carved through the air, through the equipment behind Kratos, through the tubes holding the failed experiments. Glass shattered. Amber fluid flooded the floor. The beams swept toward Kratos' head. He dove, rolled, came up with the blade of Olympus in hand. The sword sang as it cleared its sheath across his back, hungry for blood it had not yet tasted. Kratos charged forward while the man's heat vision was still tracking, got inside his range, and drove the divine blade up into his ribs. It did not pierce. The suit and the flesh beneath were too dense, too durable. But the impact lifted the man off his feet, sent him crashing through a row of equipment. And when he stood, Kratos saw something crucial. The man was winded, actually breathing hard. Limited stamina, a weakness. "What are you?" the man demanded. Fear crept into his voice, small but present. Kratos did not answer. He advanced, blade ready. The man's heat vision fired again. Kratos brought up the blade of Olympus. The divine metal absorbed the energy, redirected. It sent it splashing against the walls in a cascade of molten stone. The man's eyes widened. He took a step back. Then another. Then he flew. Straight up through the ceiling, through the rock above, vanishing into the night sky with a sonic boom that shook the entire facility. Kratos stood in the ruined laboratory, breathing steady, the blade of Olympus still humming in his grip. Around him, the freed experiments stirred in their pooling fluids. Some tried to stand. Others simply twitched and died. He sheathed the blade. This world had strong creatures, but they fled when confronted with true strength. That told him everything he needed to know about their nature. They were not gods. They were pretenders, and pretenders always broke when tested. The alarms finally stopped. In the sudden silence, Kratos heard new sounds. Helicopters in the distance, vehicles approaching, an entire army mobilizing because 3 of their champions had fallen and a 4th had fled. Good. Let them come. Let them all come. Kratos walked toward the hole the fleeing man had made in the ceiling. Moonlight spilled through it, illuminating his path. Behind him, the facility groaned and settled, wounded, but not dead. Smoke from burning equipment curled toward the opening. He climbed, hand over hand, pulling himself up through shattered rock and twisted metal, ascending toward the surface. Toward this new world that thought itself powerful, toward whatever waited above. The blades of chaos rattled against his forearms. The blade of Olympus thrummed across his back. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he heard Athena's ghost whisper words he chose to ignore. Kratos emerged into cool mountain air. The facility sprawled below him, a concrete scar carved into the wilderness. Lights blazed across its surface. Personnel scrambled like disturbed ants. And in the distance, the city burned orange against the black sky, a monument to this world's arrogance. He stood at the precipice and looked out over it all. Another world, another system built on false power, another Olympus that thought itself eternal. Kratos had destroyed one world of gods already. He would walk through this one until it understood the same truth. Nothing was eternal. Nothing was untouchable. And he was the proof. The warehouse district stank of oil and rot. Dawn had not yet broken, leaving the streets painted in shades of gray that made everything look half dead. Kratos moved through the silence like a shadow boot silent on cracked pavement. Blood from the facility still caked his shoulder, dried now, forgotten. Pain was information. Nothing more. He had walked for hours, away from the mountain compound, away from the sirens and searchlights that had multiplied like insects after the fight. This city sprawled in ways that reminded him of the mortal settlements around Olympus. Too many people pressed too close, building upward when they ran out of room to expand outward. But where those cities had smelled of life and fear, in equal measure, this place reeked of something else. Desperation dressed up as progress. The sound reached him before the ambush did. A whisper of displaced air, fabric against concrete, breathing controlled but present. 3 positions: rooftop, alley mouth, fire escape above. Kratos did not slow. He walked into the kill zone with the same deliberate pace he had maintained since arriving in this world. If they wanted him, they could try. Easy. The voice came from the alley. Male. Rough edges worn smooth by age and violence. Not here to fight. Kratos stopped, turned his head fractionally. A man emerged from the shadows, hands visible and empty. Tall, weathered face, dark coat that had seen better years. His eyes carried the particular exhaustion of someone who had witnessed too much and survived anyway. Name's Butcher. He gestured to the rooftop, the fire escape. That's Frenchie up top, Huey on the ladder, and Kimiko, movement behind Kratos. Fast. He spun blades already in hand chains, snapping tight. They stopped an inch from the throat of a young woman who had somehow gotten within arm's reach without him hearing. She stood frozen, dark eyes locked on his hands, half raised in a gesture that was not quite surrender and not quite threat. Her wrists bore scars, deep ones, old enough to have healed badly, the marks of restraints worn too long. Kratos recognized them. He bore similar scars himself, though his had been burned away when the gods had remade him into their weapon. This woman had been bound, had been used. The knowledge sat in her posture, in the way she held herself coiled and ready despite the blades at her throat. Kimiko, Butcher said quietly. Step back, love. She did not move. Her gaze never left Kratos' face. Something passed between them in that moment, not understanding, not trust, but recognition. 2 weapons assessing each other. two creatures shaped by violence, wondering if they were about to add each other to their list of scars. Kratos lowered the blades, slowly. Kimiko's hands dropped. She took one step back, then two, never turning away from him. Professional, careful, alive because she knew when to retreat. "Good," Butcher said. "Now that we've established nobody's getting their throat cut this morning, let's talk." Kratos said nothing. He waited. Butcher pulled out a phone, tapped the screen, turned it to show Kratos a video. Grainy footage from security cameras, the loading bay, Stormfront's body hitting the wall, A-Train fleeing, the golden-haired man in the cape crashing through the ceiling and then flying away moments later. "That's Homelander," Butcher said. "The strongest soup on the planet. America's golden boy. God's gift to corporate fascism." He paused. "You made him bleed. You made him run." Kratos watched the video loop. The moment of impact, the blood on perfect features, the fear in those cold eyes. "Nobody makes Homelander bleed," Butcher continued. "Nobody makes him run. Not the CIA, not the military, not other soups. He does whatever the fuck he wants, and the world smiles and asks for more." The phone disappeared back into his coat. "Until last night. Until you." "What do you want?" Kratos' voice was stone scraping stone. "Same thing you do, I reckon." Butcher's smile had no warmth in it. "To tear down the lying cunts who think they're gods." Silence stretched between them. On the rooftop, Frenchie shifted position. On the fire escape, the one called Huey cleared his throat nervously. Kimiko remained perfectly still, her attention divided between Kratos and Butcher, like she was waiting to see which one would strike first. "There's a facility," Butcher said. 3 miles west of here. Vought runs it. They make soups there. Cook them up in labs like fast food. Inject kids with compound V and see what sticks." His voice dropped, went flat. "Most don't survive. The ones that do wish they hadn't." Kratos knew that tone, had used it himself when speaking of Ares and the village that had burned. The voice of a man describing something that had already hollowed him out. "You want them dead," Kratos said. "I want the whole rotten system burned to ash." Butcher stepped closer. "But I'm realistic. I know what I can and can't do. Huey up there, good lad. Smart, soft. Frenchie's brilliant, but he's not a fighter. Kimiko..." He glanced at her. "Kimiko's dangerous, but she's one person. We've been chipping away at Vought for months. Pinpricks, mosquito bites, nothing that matters." He met Kratos' gaze directly. No fear in it, just cold calculation. "You're not a mosquito bite. You're a fucking avalanche. So here's what I'm proposing you keep doing what you're doing. We point you in the right direction, and when the smoke clears, maybe this world has a few less gods walking around." Kratos considered the offer, not because he needed these people. He had toppled Olympus alone. Could walk through this world the same way. But Butcher was offering something useful. Information, targets, direction in a place where everything was foreign. "No speeches," Kratos said. "No heroics. I don't save people." "Fuck heroics," Butcher agreed. "I'm not asking you to be Captain America. I'm asking you to be exactly what you are. Something that scares the piss out of them." Movement on the fire escape. Huey descended, moving with the awkward caution of someone unused to violence, but learning to navigate it anyway. Young, thin, eyes too wide for his face. He stopped several feet away, hands in his jacket pockets. "Is this really a good idea?" Huey asked. "I mean, he just at the facility, killed a bunch of Vought's attack dogs. Butcher finished. Yeah, that's rather the point. But we don't even know. We know enough. Butcher's attention never left Kratos. We know he made Homelander bleed. We know Vought's scrambling to figure out what the fuck he is. We know he's not playing their game. He paused. And we know he walked away from a fight he could have finished. He let A-Train run. Let the deep live. That tells me he's got a code, even if it's not one we'd recognize. Kratos had no code. He had simply not cared enough to chase fleeing prey. But he did not correct the assumption. Let them believe what made them comfortable. It changed nothing. Frenchie dropped from the rooftop landing with practiced ease on a dumpster before hopping down. He was shorter than Butcher, wiry, with the kind of build that came from constant motion rather than focused strength. He circled Kratos slowly, studying him like a puzzle. "The blades," Frenchie said. His accent was thick French, perhaps. "They burn, but do not consume themselves. And the chains they move independently, like they are alive." Kratos said nothing. "Fascinating." Frenchie nodded to himself. "Not science. Not as we understand it. Something else. Something old. Does it matter?" Butcher cut in. "He kills Supes. That's all we need to know." "It matters if we want to keep him alive," Frenchie countered. "Vought will study the footage. They will adapt. Send something designed specifically to counter him. Let them." Kratos' hand rested on one blade's hilt. "I have fought their kind before." "Supes?" Huey asked. "Gods." Kratos met his gaze. "Your Supes are children playing at divinity. I have killed the real thing." Silence. Huey looked at Butcher. Butcher looked at Frenchie. Frenchie shrugged. Only Kimiko seemed unsurprised, as if she had already assumed Kratos was something outside normal parameters and simply accepted it. "Right then," Butcher said eventually. "God Supes whatever. Point is, they bleed. And if they bleed, they can die." He pulled out a photograph, handed it to Kratos. "This facility. 3 miles west. Underground complex. Heavily guarded. They're moving product tonight, new batch of kids injected with V. Some will die there. Others will be shipped to other sites for testing." Kratos looked at the photograph. Concrete building. Unmarked. Industrial. No different from 1,000 other structures in this city. "You want me to destroy it," Kratos said. "I want you to do whatever the fuck you were gonna do anyway," Butcher replied. "We'll just make sure you're doing it in the right place." Kratos handed back the photograph. "When?" "Midnight. Guard change. Their security's tightest, but that's when they're moving the kids. You go in loud, they'll try to evacuate. You go in quiet." "I don't do quiet." Butcher's grin was sharp and humorless. "No, I don't imagine you do." Kimiko stepped forward. She pointed at Kratos, then at herself, then made a walking gesture. The meaning was clear. "She wants to go with you," Frenchie translated. Kratos studied her, the scars on her wrists, the coiled readiness in her stance, the absolute silence she maintained not from choice, but from necessity. Another weapon, another creature forged in pain and pointed at targets. "Stay out of my way," Kratos said. Kimiko's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. Acknowledgement. "The rest of us will handle perimeter," Butcher said. "Cut their communications. Block exits. Make sure nobody calls Homelander before you're done." He paused. "Fair warning, there'll be Supes inside. Not 7 level, but enhanced. And they won't run like A-Train did." "Good." Kratos turned toward the west, toward the facility, toward more prey that thought itself predator. Running prey is no challenge. He started walking. Behind him, he heard Huey's nervous whisper. Is he always like that? Like what? Butcher asked. Like he's already decided everyone's dead and is just working through the list. Butcher's laugh was dark. That's exactly what he's doing, lad. And right now, Vaught's name is at the top. Kratos continued into the gray dawn. Kimiko fell into step beside him, silent as his shadow. She did not speak, did not try to connect, simply moved with the fluid grace of someone who understood violence as a language and conversation as unnecessary. Good. Words were wasted breath. Action was truth. And tonight he would teach this world's false gods the same lesson Olympus had learned. They were not immortal. They were not untouchable. They were just meat-wearing crowns. And crowns did nothing to stop blades. Midnight came with fog thick enough to taste. It rolled through the industrial district like a living thing muffling sound, turning streetlights into diffuse halos that illuminated nothing. Perfect weather for violence. Kratos had seen it before, the kind of night where gods and monsters conducted their business away from mortal eyes. The facility squatted low and ugly against the earth, all concrete and steel, with no pretense of aesthetics. Guard towers at each corner, razor wire, cameras sweeping predetermined arcs, security protocols designed by people who thought walls and technology could stop anything. Kratos had torn through the gates of Tartarus. This was nothing. Kimiko crouched beside him on the ridge overlooking the compound. She had not spoken once during the 3-mile walk. Had not needed to. Her movements told him everything: where to step, to avoid detection, which routes the patrols followed, how the guards cycled their positions. She knew this place, had perhaps been inside it before. The knowledge sat in her posture like old poison. Below them, Butcher's team moved into position. Shadows against shadows. Frenchie at the communications hub. Huey covering the east exit with equipment that probably wouldn't save him if shooting started. Butcher himself somewhere in the dark, with a rifle and the patience of a man who had waited years for revenge and could wait a few minutes more. Kratos did not wait. He stood and walked down the slope toward the main gate. The first guard saw him at 50 yards, raised his rifle, opened his mouth to shout a warning. Kratos threw a blade. The chain uncoiled like a striking serpent, and the guard's warning died with him, blade buried in his chest before the sound could form. Alarms shrieked. Floodlights blazed to life, turning night into artificial day. The remaining guards opened fire. Bullets sparked off the ground around Kratos' feet, off his gauntlets, off the blades of chaos, as he spun them in defensive arcs. One round caught him in the thigh. He kept walking. The gate exploded inward when he kicked it. Metals shrieked and tore. Guards scattered. Kratos walked through the gap like he walked through everything inevitable as a landslide, unconcerned with obstacles. A guard fired a grenade launcher. The explosive hit Kratos' center mass, detonated, and he vanished in a ball of fire and shrapnel. The guards cheered. The smoke cleared. Kratos stood in the exact same spot, ash falling from his shoulders like snow. The blast had scorched his skin, torn his clothes, done nothing to slow him. He ripped the blade of Olympus from its sheath across his back. The divine weapon hummed with hunger. The slaughter was methodical. Guards fell like wheat before a scythe. Kratos did not waste motion. Each strike found flesh. Each death was efficient. He felt nothing doing it. These were not warriors. They were obstacles, meat between him and the facility's interior. Kimiko appeared from the smoke like a ghost moving through the chaos with inhuman speed. She targeted the guards Kratos had passed, the ones trying to flank the ones reaching for radios. Her hands were weapons enough. Bones snapped. Throats collapsed. She killed in silence, her face blank, and Kratos recognized that expression. The emptiness of someone who had stopped counting bodies long ago. The main door was reinforced steel. Kratos cut through it. The blade of Olympus parted metal like cloth divine edge, unconcerned with mortal alloys. He kicked the bisected door inward and entered. The interior was clinical. White walls, fluorescent lighting harsh enough to hurt. The smell of disinfectant barely masking something underneath chemicals and fear, and the particular stench of pain that had soaked into a place over years. Kratos knew that smell, had smelled it in Ares' temples in the dungeons, beneath Olympus, in every place where power fed on suffering. Scientists in white coats ran. Kratos let them. They were not fighters, not threats, just enablers. Cowards who had chosen safety over conscience. Let them run. Let them tell others what came for places like this. The holding cells lined both sides of the corridor. Behind reinforced glass figures stirred. Children, teenagers, some strapped to medical tables, others floating in suspension tanks like the ones at the mountain facility. Their bodies showed the marks of enhancement, unnatural musculature, deformed limbs, skin that pulsed with colors no human should contain. Failed experiments, discarded attempts at creating gods. One cell held a boy no older than 10. He pressed against the glass, mouth open, in a scream Kratos could not hear through the soundproofing. The boy's eyes were wrong, too many of them, scattered across his face like some insect. Enhancement gone wrong. Pain that would never end. Kratos did not look away. He had learned long ago that turning from suffering did not erase it. Only action did. He drove the blade of Olympus through the control panel. Sparks erupted. The magnetic locks disengaged with a cascading series of clicks. Cell doors hissed open. The prisoners stumbled out, blinking in the harsh light, unsure whether this was rescue or new torment. "Go," Kratos said. The only word they would get from him. Some ran, others stood frozen. The boy with too many eyes stared at Kratos like he was something from a nightmare. Perhaps he was. Perhaps there was no difference anymore between monsters and those who killed them. Kimiko appeared at his side. She signed something rapid to the prisoners. They moved, then following her toward the exit she indicated. She would get them out. That was not his concern. Kratos continued deeper into the facility. Downstairs, through laboratories where machines monitored vital signs of subjects who were more corpse than living. Past observation rooms where scientists had sat and made notes while children screamed. The architecture told its own story. This was not a place of science. It was a factory, an assembly line for gods that broke more often than it succeeded. The bottom level opened into a vast chamber. Concrete pillars held up a ceiling lost in shadow. Equipment lined the walls, industrial scale meant for mass production. And in the center, standing beside a stainless steel table, still wet with something that might have been blood, stood a man in a white suit. Tall, silver hair, smile that belonged on a mortician. He did not run when Kratos entered, did not reach for a weapon, simply stood there like he was waiting for a business meeting to start. "Remarkable," the man said. His voice was smooth, cultured, utterly calm. "You've cost Vought approximately $73 million in property damage. 12 soups dead or compromised. Homelander himself is in seclusion, refusing interviews." The smile widened. "I should be angry. Instead, I'm fascinated." Kratos said nothing. He advanced blades ready. "My name is Stillwell," the man continued. "I manage the Seven. I ensure our assets perform at optimal levels. And you're something I've never seen before. Not a soup, not enhanced by compound Vi. Yet you possess strength, durability, capabilities that should be impossible. Nothing is impossible." Kratos' voice was dead calm. "I have proven that repeatedly." "Yes, you have." Stillwell gestured to the room around them. "This facility represents decades of research, billions in investment, the future of human evolution, and you've destroyed it in under 10 minutes. He tilted his head. "Why?" "You make gods," Kratos said. "I kill them. We don't make gods. We make products, marketable heroes that provide security and entertainment in equal measure. Surely you can see the difference." Kratos was upon him before the sentence finished. One hand wrapped around Stillwell's throat, lifting him into the air. The man's calm finally broke. His hands clawed at Kratos' wrist legs, kicking that mortician smile replaced by terror. "There is no difference," Kratos said. "You create beings with power. Tell them they are special. Let them hurt the weak. That is what gods do." He squeezed. "And gods die. Always." Stillwell's neck snapped. The sound was small, insignificant. Kratos dropped the body and it hit the floor with no more ceremony than any other corpse. The temperature in the room changed, dropped. The air pressure shifted. Kratos turned. Homelander stood in the entrance. His cape hung perfectly despite the violence above. His suit was immaculate, but his face carried something new. Not the calculated charm from the video footage, not the narcissistic certainty. Something darker, raw. "You killed Stillwell," Homelander said. His voice was soft, wrong, like a child trying to sound reasonable while holding a knife. "He was useful." "He enabled you," Kratos replied. "That made him responsible." "Responsible?" Homelander laughed. The sound bounced off concrete, echoed into something unhinged. "Stillwell managed me, controlled me, made me dance for cameras and smile for children, and pretend I gave a fuck about any of it." He floated forward, boots lifting off the ground. "He made me into a product, into a brand, into a lie." "Then why do you care he is dead?" "Because he was mine to kill." The shout cracked like thunder. "Mine, not yours. Nobody touches what's mine." Homelander's eyes ignited. Red light built behind the pupils, heat shimmered, distorting the air. Kratos brought up the blade of Olympus. The heat vision lanced out twin beams of concentrated energy that could melt steel and struck the divine blade at an angle. The energy scattered, scorched the walls, set equipment ablaze. Homelander blinked, stared. "What is that?" "A weapon that has killed gods," Kratos said. "Real gods, not children in costumes." The words hit harder than any blade could. Homelander's perfect face twisted. All pretense of humanity evaporated like water on hot stone. What remained was something primal, something that had been pretending to be human for so long it had forgotten it was just pretending. He attacked with speed that bent physics. One moment he was 20 feet away. The next, his fist was burying itself in Kratos' ribs. Bone cracked. Kratos flew backward, crashed through a steel support pillar, brought half the ceiling down with him. Concrete rained. Dust choked the air. Kratos rose from the rubble, bleeding from his mouth, ribs screaming. Homelander stood in the center of the destruction chest, heaving fists clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. "I am not a child," Homelander said. "I am the only real thing in this entire shit world. Everyone else is made of cardboard. Breakable, forgettable, nothing. But me, I'm..." Kratos threw both blades of chaos. The chains sang as they extended, crossing each other, mid-flight, creating a net of cursed steel that wrapped around Homelander's torso. The flames ignited. Not normal fire. The cursed flames that had burned Ares, that had scorched gods, who thought themselves immune to mortal harm. Homelander screamed. The sound was animal. Pure. He tore at the chains, his invulnerable skin reddening, blistering where the flames touched. Kratos yanked. Homelander stumbled forward. Kratos met him with the blade of Olympus. The divine weapon plunged into Homelander's side. Not deep. The man's durability was absurd, his flesh resistant even to God-forged steel. But it pierced, it cut. And blood welled around the blade, actual blood, red and human, and impossible. Homelander looked down at the wound, at the blood staining his pristine suit. His face went through a cascade of emotions: shock, disbelief, rage, and underneath it all, fear. Raw and childlike and terrible. "I bleed," he whispered. "I can bleed." "Everything bleeds," Kratos said. He twisted the blade. Homelander howled. Heat vision erupted again, wild and unfocused. The beams carved through the facility like searchlights, cutting support pillars, igniting stored chemicals, turning the underground chamber into an inferno. Kratos withdrew the blade, rolled aside as a beam passed through where his head had been. Homelander flew upward. Not attacking, fleeing. He smashed through the ceiling, through the floor above, kept going until he was just a sound in the distance. A sonic boom fading into the night. Gone. Kratos stood in the burning facility, breathing hard, blood running down his side from reopened wounds. The blade of Olympus was slick with Homelander's blood. Proof. Evidence that the strongest being in this world could be hurt, could be beaten, could be killed. The facility groaned. Structural integrity compromised, fire spreading through chemical storage. Kratos sheathed the blade and turned toward the exit. Time to leave before the collapse buried him. He found Kimiko outside, surrounded by the freed prisoners. She had gotten them clear of the building, gotten them organized, gotten them ready to run when the place came down. Her clothes were soaked in blood, none of it hers. She signed something to Kratos. He did not understand the language, but caught the meaning. Mission complete. Butcher emerged from the fog with Frenchie and Huey in tow. They stared at the burning facility, at the prisoners, at Kratos standing there, like a monument carved from violence. "You actually did it," Huey said, voice small. "You actually destroyed it." "Of course he did," Butcher replied. His grin was savage. "I told you, not a mosquito bite, a fucking avalanche." The facility collapsed inward, with a roar of tortured metal and concrete. Flames shot skyward, turning the fog orange. The freed prisoners flinched. Kimiko remained still. Kratos watched without expression. Another facility destroyed. Another group of false gods, proven mortal. Another step forward in a path that had only one direction. "Homelander?" Butcher asked. "He ran," Kratos said. "Again. You made him run twice." Butcher's voice held something like awe. "You stabbed the cunt and he flew away crying." "He will return," Kratos said. "They always do." "Let him." Butcher lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his face. Next time he comes back, you'll be ready. And the time after that, and the time after that. He exhaled smoke, until one of you doesn't walk away. Kratos said nothing. Butcher was right. This was how wars were fought. Not in single battles, but in accumulated damage. Each engagement wore away certainty. Each wound taught fear. Eventually, even the strongest broke. He had broken Olympus this way, one god at a time, one battle at a time, until Mount Olympus itself fell. This world would be no different. Sirens wailed in the distance. Emergency response. Too late. Always too late. The freed prisoners scattered into the fog, returning to whatever lives they could salvage. Kimiko watched them go, something unreadable in her expression. "We should move," Frenchie said. "Vought will send more, stronger ones." "Let them," Kratos said. He started walking, away from the flames, away from Butcher and his team, back into the dark where he moved best. Behind him, he heard Huey's voice. "Is he always like that?" "Like what?" Butcher asked. "Like nothing scares him. Like he's seen worse than this and survived." Butcher's laugh was dark. "Because he has Lad, and whatever scared him once he killed it." The fog swallowed Kratos. Somewhere above, Homelander was nursing his wound, learning fear, understanding that invulnerability was a lie. Good. Fear made prey predictable, and Kratos had one absolute truth he had learned across two destroyed pantheons. Gods only stayed gods until someone proved otherwise. He had proven it to Zeus, to Poseidon, to Ares and Athena and every Olympian who thought themselves eternal. Now he would prove it here, to Homelander, to Vought, to every false deity that claimed power over the weak. The blade still hummed with Homelander's blood. The first wound, not the last. Kratos walked into the dark. The hunt continued. The news broke at dawn. Every screen in every city showed the same footage. Shaky cell phone video of a burning facility. Bodies in tactical gear. A man walking through fire with blades that burned brighter than the flames. The freed prisoners stumbling into the night, their deformed bodies testament to horrors the public had never imagined. Vaught's press conference lasted 6 minutes. A spokesperson in a perfect suit stood before a wall of logos and cameras and lies. Terrorist attack. Rogue elements. The situation was contained. Homelander himself would address the nation soon. Trust the process. Trust the heroes. Trust Vought. Nobody believed it anymore. Kratos watched the broadcast on a television through a storefront window. He had walked through the city for hours as night gave way to morning, moving through streets that were beginning to stir with early commuters. The footage replayed endlessly. Different angles, different channels, same truth underneath the spin. Vought was wounded. The myth of control was cracking. His reflection stared back from the glass. Ash-gray skin, dried blood, eyes that held nothing but cold purpose. People gave him a wide berth on the sidewalk, some unconsciously, others with deliberate fear. He was not trying to hide. There was no point. This world had cameras everywhere, electronic eyes that never blinked. Let them watch. Let them see what came for false gods. The phone in his pocket buzzed. Butcher had given it to him before they parted. Simple device. One contact. Kratos pulled it out, stared at the glowing screen, pressed the button he had been shown. "They're panicking." Butcher's voice crackled through the speaker. "Vaught's moving assets. Burning documents. Evacuating secondary sites. You've got them scared shitless." Good, Kratos said. Not good. Cornered rats bite harder. They're pulling in every soup on their payroll. Black Noir, Queen Maeve, others you haven't met, and Homelander. Butcher paused. Homelander's gone dark. Nobody's seen him since last night. That's either very good or very bad. Kratos ended the call. He did not need Butcher's analysis. Wounded predators either fled permanently or returned with desperation. Homelander would return. The narcissism in that perfect face demanded it. Men who called themselves gods could not accept defeat. They would throw everything they had left at the problem until either it died or they did. Kratos preferred that kind of enemy. Predictable, direct, no more games. He turned from the storefront and walked toward the address Butcher had mentioned in passing during their first meeting. Vought Tower, the corporate headquarters, the heart of their empire. 50 stories of steel and glass in the center of the city, topped with the company logo that blazed against the sky every night like a false star. If he wanted to end this, that was where he needed to go. Not for strategy, not for symbolism, simply because that was where the power concentrated. And concentrated power made for efficient destruction. The streets grew more crowded as he walked. Morning rush. Thousands of people moving through their routines, checking phones, drinking coffee, existing in the bubble of normalcy that let them ignore what their heroes actually were. Some glanced at Kratos. Most looked away quickly. Self-preservation instinct. The recognition that something dangerous walked among them, and acknowledging it might make it notice them. Wise. Vought Tower rose ahead, dominating the skyline. Security checkpoints at ground level, armed guards, metal detectors, cameras tracking every approach, all of it designed to protect the building from threats that followed normal rules. Kratos did not follow rules. He walked through the main entrance. The security guard's hand went to his sidearm. "Sir, you need to..." Kratos kept walking. The guard drew his weapon. Other guards converged. Radios crackled. The metal detectors screamed as he passed through them. Blades of chaos setting off every alarm simultaneously. Down on the ground now. Kratos stopped, turned. 6 guards surrounded him, weapons raised, faces tight with the understanding that this was already beyond their pay grade. But they had to do something because that was the job. "Leave, Kaisa," Kratos said, "while you can." One guard fired. The bullet sparked off Kratos' gauntlet. The others opened up a wall of gunfire in the enclosed space. Civilians screamed, ran. The lobby erupted into chaos. Kratos moved through the hail of bullets like he moved through everything. The blades of chaos spun deflected rounds carved through the air. He did not kill the guards. They were following orders, doing what they thought was right. Instead, he disarmed them. Literally. Arms broken, wrists shattered, weapons sent clattering across marble floors. Within 30 seconds, the guards were down. The civilians had evacuated. Alarms blared. Kratos stood alone in the lobby, surrounded by Vought propaganda posters showing smiling heroes and saved citizens. All lies. All marketing. All the same poison Olympus had peddled: worship us, trust us, let us decide your fate. He destroyed the elevator doors with one kick, climbed into the shaft, started ascending. Floor by floor, Kratos carved his way upward. Security teams met him at intervals, better trained than the lobby guards, some enhanced with low-grade compound fee. Faster, stronger, still nowhere near divine. They fell anyway. Kratos did not waste time on mercy. These were not innocent guards anymore. These were Vought's inner circle, The ones who knew what happened in those facilities, who processed the paperwork, who made sure the trains ran on time while children were injected with poison in the name of profit. The blade of Olympus sang through flesh and bone. Blood painted the walls. Bodies tumbled down elevator shafts. And Kratos kept climbing. On the 23rd floor, he emerged into an office space. Cubicles stretched in neat rows. Computers hummed. But the workers were gone, evacuated when the alarm started. Empty desks held coffee cups still warm. Screensavers cycled through corporate slogans. Motivational posters promised greatness through dedication. Kratos walked to the windows. Below the city sprawled vast and indifferent. Police vehicles converged on the tower. News helicopters circled. Cameras captured everything. Good. Let them document. Let them broadcast. Let this world watch their gods bleed. Something moved behind him. Fast. Professional. Kratos spun blades ready. A woman stood 20 feet away, black tactical suit, mask covering the lower half of her face, katana in each hand. She moved with the fluid certainty of someone who had trained since childhood, who knew violence as intimately as breathing. Black Noir. Butcher had mentioned the name. Vought's silent killer, their answer to problems that could not be solved with PR. She did not speak, simply attacked. The katanas were quick silver tracing patterns in the air that would have filleted a normal opponent. But Kratos had fought, Hermes had matched speed with beings that moved between heartbeats. Black Noir was fast. She was not divine. He caught one blade with his gauntlet. The steel shrieked. Noir's eyes widened behind the mask's surprise that her strike had been stopped. Kratos drove his elbow into her midsection. She rolled with it, used the momentum to create distance, came back in with a different angle. Professional, adaptable, dangerous. The fight ranged through the office space. Noir used the environment, kicked chairs into Kratos' path, vaulted over cubicles, tried to create separation for ranged attacks. Kratos simply plowed through obstacles, destroyed desks, shattered computers, pursued with the inevitability of a glacier. Noir was breathing hard now. Kratos was not. She could hurt him. Her blades were well forged, her technique flawless, but she could not stop him. And she was beginning to realize it. She threw one katana. Kratos deflected it. She used the distraction to run not away, but toward the window. She crashed through glass, dropped, and Kratos heard the sound of a grappling line deploying. Gone. Tactical retreat. The mark of a survivor. Kratos did not pursue. She was a weapon aimed by others, not the hand that wielded her. He continued upward. The higher floors were less populated. Executive suites, private offices, the domain of those who made decisions that destroyed lives and called it business. Kratos found boardrooms with mahogany tables and leather chairs. He found walls lined with awards, celebrating Vought's contributions to society. He found a museum dedicated to the Seven with costumes displayed like religious artifacts. He destroyed it all, systematically, methodically. Not rage, just work that needed doing. On the 47th floor, he found the servers. Room after room of humming machines, each one holding data that Vought had accumulated over decades. Blackmail material, medical records, evidence of crimes that would shatter governments if revealed. All of it protected behind encryption and security protocols designed by the best minds money could buy. Kratos drove the blade of Olympus through the first server rack. Sparks erupted. The divine weapon did not care about technology. It was forged to kill gods. Machines were nothing. He carved through the server room like a farmer through wheat. Metal shrieked and died. Fire bloomed from ruined circuits. Sprinkler systems activated, drenching everything, and chemical foam that did nothing to stop the destruction. Somewhere in those servers had been evidence. Proof of what Vought was. Records of children who had died in experiments. Financial trails showing corruption that reached the highest levels of government. All of it potentially useful to people like Butcher, who fought with information as their weapon. Kratos did not care. Evidence could be denied. Trials could be bought. Justice could be delayed indefinitely by lawyers and appeals and systems designed to protect the powerful. But buildings could burn, companies could fall, and people could die. That was justice he understood. He reached the 50th floor, the executive level. The walls here were different reinforced blast resistant, designed to protect whoever occupied this space from everything short of divine intervention. The door to the main office was sealed. Electronic locks, biometric sensors, redundant security. Kratos kicked it off its hinges. The office beyond was empty, vast. Windows on 3 sides offering a panoramic view of the city. A desk that cost more than most people earned in a year. Photographs on the walls showing Vaught's executives shaking hands with presidents, with celebrities, with everyone who mattered in this world. And in the center of it all, a man, not Stillwell. Someone older. Gray hair, expensive suit. He stood with his back to the view, hands clasped behind him, utterly calm, despite the alarms and the sounds of destruction below. "You must be Kratos," the man said. American accent, cultured. The voice of someone used to being the smartest person in every room. "I'm Stan Edgar, CEO of Vought International." He turned. His face held no fear, only interest. "You've cost me approximately $3 billion in the last 18 hours. That's actually impressive." Kratos said nothing. He walked forward, blades ready. "Before you kill me," Edgar said, raising one hand. "Understand something. I'm not Homelander. I'm not a soupy pretending to be a god. I'm just a businessman who saw an opportunity and exploited it." He gestured to the city below. "All of this, the Seven, the marketing, the worship, it's not real. It's product. I know that. You know that. The difference is, I never claimed otherwise." "You created them," Kratos said. "You gave them power. That makes you responsible." "Responsible? Perhaps." Edgar's smile was thin. "But killing me changes nothing. Vought is a publicly traded company. We have shareholders, board members, international operations in 40 countries. You can destroy this building. You can kill every executive. The company will survive. It will rebrand, restructure, continue under new management." He pulled out a phone, showed Kratos the screen. Stock prices, already recovering from the morning's panic. Investors calling the facility attack a temporary setback. Market analysts predicting Vought would emerge stronger. "You're fighting a system," Edgar continued. "Systems don't die when you kill the face at the top. They adapt, they survive. That's what makes them different from your gods." Kratos looked at the screen, at the numbers that meant nothing to him, at the cold calculation that reduced human suffering to profit margins and strategic planning. Edgar was right about one thing. This was not Olympus. The gods there had been real flesh and blood and divine power that died when you killed it. This world's gods were different. They were ideas, corporations, systems that existed in ledgers and contracts and laws. But ideas died too, just differently. "You are right," Kratos said. "Killing you changes nothing." Relief flickered across Edgar's face. Finally, sensible. Which is why I will destroy everything. Not just you, not just this tower. Kratos gestured to the city below. Every facility, every soup, every piece of your system, until nothing remains but ash and memory. Edgar's calm finally cracked. You can't. The scope alone. I destroyed Olympus, Kratos said. I killed every god, brought down every temple, left nothing but ruins. He stepped closer. Your company is not a pantheon. It is not divine. It is just men and money. Both bleed. He left Edgar alive. Let the man watch from his tower as Kratos descended. Let him understand that death was mercy, and mercy was not coming. Kratos exited through the main entrance. Police had surrounded the building. SWAT teams, news crews, thousands of eyes watching as he walked into the street covered in blood and ash weapons still burning with cursed fire. They did not try to stop him. The footage had circulated. They knew what happened to those who stood in his way. He walked through the cordon, through the city, past people who filmed him with shaking hands, past news anchors trying to explain to their audiences what they were witnessing. Vought Tower still stood behind him. But it was hollow now, gutted, its servers destroyed, its security shattered, its invincibility proven false. Tomorrow there would be more facilities, more soups, more battles. But today Kratos had proven something this world needed to learn. Their gods bled. Their systems broke. And nothing they built could stand against someone who had already burned Olympus to the ground. The hunt continued. 3 days later, Kratos stood on the roof of an abandoned factory on the city's edge. The skyline burned orange in the setting sun, smoke from a dozen fires painting the horizon. Not all of them were his doing. Vaught's collapse had triggered something. Riots, uprisings. People who had been told their heroes would protect them, discovering those heroes, had been predators all along. The world was adjusting, violently. Butcher found him there. The man climbed the rusted fire escape with the slow deliberation of someone who had earned his exhaustion. He pulled out a cigarette lit. It stared at the burning city. Queen Maeve went into hiding, Butcher said. A-trains in a hospital. Black Noir vanished. The Deep's on television crying about how he didn't know. He exhaled smoke. Homelander hasn't been seen since you carved him up. Some think he's dead. Most think he's out there somewhere learning to be scared. Kratos said nothing. The wind pulled at his hair, carried the smell of burning plastic and something worse. The scent of a world in transition, of order collapsing, of the space between what was and what came next. You did it, Butcher continued. You actually fucking did it. Broke them, all of them. Vaught's stock crashed. Government investigations launched. People are demanding answers, and for once there's no PR team slick enough to make it go away. He turned to look at Kratos. You gave us a chance. A real one. I gave you nothing, Kratos replied. I destroyed what needed destroying. What you do with the aftermath is not my concern. Butcher laughed. Dark, tired. Yeah, I suppose that's fair. He flicked ash into the wind. Huey wants to thank you. Kimiko signed something that Frenchie says means you're a warrior worthy of respect. And me, he shrugged. I just wanted to see if you were still here or if you'd already moved on to the next thing that pissed you off. I am leaving, Kratos said. It was not a decision, simply fact. He had felt it building for the last day. The same sensation that had pulled him from the mountain facility. The same instinct that told him when a place had yielded everything it would yield. This world's gods were broken. The survivors would either learn from it or repeat the same mistakes. Either way, it was no longer his battle. "Where?" Butcher asked. Kratos gestured to the east, beyond the city, beyond the mountains, towards something he could feel but not name. A pull. A rift forming in reality, like the one that had brought him here. The multiverse rebalancing itself, opening a door home or to somewhere else entirely. "Right." Butcher took a long drag. "Before you go, you should know they're already trying to rebuild. Vaught's board appointed new leadership. Pentagon's discussing a superhuman control act. Politicians arguing about regulation versus freedom." He met Kratos' gaze. "They didn't learn. They're just scared." And scared people don't change. They just build bigger walls and tell themselves it'll be different this time. "Then they will fall again," Kratos said. "As Olympus did. As all empires do." "Maybe." Butcher crushed the cigarette under his boot. "But that's their problem now. You did your part, more than your part." He extended his hand. "For what it's worth, and I know it's probably not worth much to someone like you, thank you. For making them bleed. For proving it could be done." Kratos looked at the offered hand. A gesture of respect, of acknowledgement between warriors. He had seen such gestures before, in the mortal armies that had fought beside Sparta in the brief alliances formed against common enemies. He gripped Butcher's forearm. Brief, firm, then released. Butcher nodded, turned, descended the fire escape without looking back. Halfway down, his voice drifted up. "If you ever come back this way and need someone to point you at the next bunch of cunts who think they're gods, you know where to find me." Then he was gone. Just footsteps fading into the industrial maze below. Kratos stood alone on the roof. The sun dropped lower, shadows lengthened. And in the air he felt the shift, reality thinning, the rift opening like a wound that had been waiting to heal or to tear wider. A voice came from behind him. Not real. Never real. But present anyway. "You changed this world." Athena's ghost materialized at the roof's edge, translucent and eternally young, eternally disappointed. Shattered their illusions, left them vulnerable. "I killed pretenders," Kratos replied. "Nothing more. You could stay, guide them, show them how to build something better from the ruins." "No." He turned to face her fully. "I am not a builder. I am not a teacher. I destroy what should not exist. That is all I have ever been." Athena's expression held something like sadness. "Then you learned nothing? Power exists. Whether in Olympus or in corporate towers, whether wielded by gods or by men with injections. You can kill the individuals, but the hunger for power remains. Someone will always rise to claim it." "Then I will kill them too," Kratos said simply. "For as long as necessary." "An eternity of violence," Athena whispered. "Is that all you are?" Kratos considered the question. Thought of the faces he had seen in this world. The freed prisoners stumbling into the night. Kimiko's scarred wrists, the children floating in tanks, the guards who had died following orders, Butcher's exhausted rage, Huey's frightened hope. He thought of his own hands, the blood that never fully washed away, the weight of the blades of chaos that had been his burden since the day he had sworn himself to Ares. "Yes," he said finally, "that is all I am." The rift opened behind him, light that was not light, sound that was not sound, a passage to somewhere else, somewhere that needed what he was, or perhaps just another place to fall until the next battle found him. Athena faded like morning mist. Then go. Walk your path. But know this, you cannot outrun what you are. Cannot kill your way to peace. The cycle continues because you continue it. I know, Kratos said. He stepped toward the rift, paused, looked back one last time at the burning city, at the world he was leaving behind, changed but not saved, wounded but not healed, free of one set of gods but already reaching for the next. It would have to be enough. Kratos walked into the rift. Reality folded around him, swallowed him, carried him away from this world, and toward whatever came next. The light consumed everything. The sensation of falling without direction. Time and space becoming suggestions rather than rules. Behind him the rift sealed. The roof stood empty. The sun finished setting. And in Vought Tower's ruins, in hidden facilities across the globe, in the hearts of every person who had worn a cape and called themselves a hero, the memory of what had walked among them remained. Not inspiration, not hope, just the knowledge that power was not protection, that strength could be overcome, that gods real or manufactured could bleed. The city kept burning through the night. The world kept turning. And somewhere in the dark, people who had cowered began to stand. Not because they had been saved, but because they had seen proof that their oppressors were mortal. Kratos had given them nothing. He had simply taken away the lie that nothing could be done. The rest was up to them. And in another world, or perhaps the same world at a different time, Kratos opened his eyes to new ruins, new gods, new battles. The blades of chaos hung heavy at his sides. The blade of Olympus weighted across his back. And the hunt continued, as it always had, as it always would, until he found the one thing he had been searching for since Olympus fell. An end worth accepting. But that day was not today.